No joke, I was on the edge of my seat this whole chapter and I was sweating the power of Murakami. Hey guys, what's good? What's popping in the hood? Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another episode of Bangtan Book Club. The idea behind Bangtan Book Club is that we read and discuss books that have inspired BTS. This week, we're going to be talking about Q84 by Haruki Murakami. So Namjoon has actually recommended this book on many occasions, but this is the first time I've ever read a book by Murakami, and wow, just wow. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a discussion of the book and the links to BTS, some non-spoilery ones as far as I can. Then I need to get into some spoilers because I was shooketh by this book, but I'll let you know when those are coming. Yeah, I get it, and it's like 900 pages long and just the first two books, and then there's another book. But weirdly enough, despite it being really long, I managed to read it really quickly, and I don't know how I managed to do this. I was really sick in January, so when I was reading this book, I was kind of jumping from like one fever dream to another fever dream, so it kind of became like a cohesive reading experience. It was quite a journey. 1Q84 is set in Tokyo in 1984. So there's this woman, Aomame, and she's running late for this meeting and there's loads of traffic. The taxi driver basically says, go under the underpass and pop out the other side, and it's way quicker than waiting in this traffic. So she does that, but then when she comes out the other side, she's in what she calls 1Q84, which is like a parallel version of 1984 Tokyo. Everything's pretty much the same, except there's just like a few differences that she notices. The biggest one being the fact that there's two moons. And then you also have Tango. He's this guy who's this cram school tutor and an aspiring writer, and he basically gets given this opportunity to rewrite this 17-year-old girl's story, Fukaeri, and her story is called Air Chrysalis, and he basically is trying to rewrite it to make it like a big hit. Just chapter by chapter it flips between these two characters, and the whole book, it's kind of about figuring out these two people's pasts and unpacking their trauma as well. Just looking into what actually connects these two storylines, because they're kind of very separate. This book deals with some dark stuff. Like, I think this is the darkest we've gotten on Bangtan Book Club. If you're a youngin' and you're trying to like get into reading new books, I would give this one a skip. Obviously, most armies, you know, are like adults, so, you know, give it a read, but I would like to just point out a few of the trigger warnings. Yeah, I just want you to be warned before you go into this book. So there's trigger warnings for child abuse, murder, suicide, and sexual assault. Be wary coming into this book because it's very, very intense. Okay, so the book. I can't explain to you why I was so enthralled by this book. When I tell you that I couldn't put it down, I could not put it down. Like, I felt like I was sucked into the world. Like, I wasn't even reading a page anymore. I was just like in it. I liked how he described everything in the room. And some people get bothered by that, but personally, I enjoyed it. Because I felt like that's what established the atmosphere so well and made everything very intriguing from the beginning. When I say that he described everything, I literally mean he described everything. Like, there was this one scene where this character actually goes to the toilet, and I was like, I don't think I've ever seen a character go to a toilet in a book. The fact that I even noted that. But yeah, the details and like the slow reveals, they just kept me going because I'm like, yes, give me crumbs. I love living for crumbs. Now back to Tango and Aomame. I think I was enjoying Aomame's perspective slightly more than Tango's. Like, her unpacking her trauma from the past was really intriguing, and also her like literally dealing with said trauma in the present was intense. I felt like the cast of characters in her perspective of the story were way more developed than Tango's perspective. And Tango's side of things, I really enjoyed hearing about Fukaeri and her story. Like, her story had a lot of magical realism in it, and I love seeing the similarities between her story and then the parallels within 1Q84. When it comes to Fukaeri, Tango, and Aomame, what really connects them is this like overwhelming sense of loneliness. That's what really binds them all together. Okay, so what are the links to BTS? Apart from the fact that Namjoon recommended it, there isn't really like a solid confirmed concrete link to BTS, but you can't read 1Q84 and not think about certain things that BTS have said and just like their entire philosophy. Like the themes of this book often come up in their discography and definitely in the BU, the Bangtan universe. Okay, quick rundown of the BU. A group of 7 friends, each with their own dark traumatic past. A cat comes by, gives Jin the power to time travel. He goes back in time to try and stop BTS members from doing something actually dumb or getting themselves killed. Each time he goes back, some other bad thing happens, and Tae has these dreams, and he's like, oh, are these another loop? And then, is it a dream? Is it reality? How many versions of the world are there? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And it keeps on repeating itself, and things change, and things advance, but it goes back to the same thing. There is a lot of similarities between the BU and 1Q84. Obviously, we got like the parallel universes, chance encounters, murdering abusers. Loneliness again just comes back frequently in both. Like, both storylines are obsessed with the idea of changing the past. Jin's character's kind of alone in his quest to save everyone. All the boys are alone until they meet each other. There's this moment in 1Q84 where Tengo's talking to Fukaeri about changing the past. She says that she'd rather change the present than change the past, and he responds saying that changing the past would change the present. Throughout the book, Tengo specifically is thinking about things that happened in his past, things that he's witnessed in his past that have shaped who he is today, painting this idea that small changes to someone's past could have a huge effect on who they are in the present. In 1Q84, they don't really have the power to change the past, so they're kind of focused on changing the present, but in the BU, that's an option. But either way, it goes wrong anyway. So back to loneliness. There's this girl in Tengo's class that has a really big impact on him when he was a child. And it reminded me of something that was said in HYYH Notes 1. I once heard a saying that God makes us lonely to lead us to him. But I was not lonely. I was not following the path towards myself. This was a retreat. I was running away from myself. So deep. But I feel like this quote is so true for that girl in Tengo's class. She's bullied for being part of this like very, very strict religious group and having to do certain rituals and certain prayers at school. So she felt incredibly lonely. She would be expected to turn to her religion, right? But she ends up relying on Tengo. So when he reached out to her, she took his hand, and just that moment of them both kind of accepting each other and accepting that together they can be less lonely, it was really impactful to Tengo. Like, he remembers it still, even 29 years old. I wanted to make her happy. I wanted to make her laugh. Every time I made her happy, I felt as if I became a better person. It felt as if my shortcomings were being put out of sight. Tell me that's not straight out of 1Q84. That sounds like something that Tengo would say about the girl. Also, the quote about God and loneliness and stuff is a reference to Demian. Of course it's a reference to Demian. I swear to you, Demian doesn't want to step out the spotlight. It's like, no, it's all about me. It's all about me. I'm still here. I'm like, Demian, we're not even talking about you. What are you doing here? Demian says, there are many ways in which Providence can make us feel lonely and lead us back to ourselves. Sometimes God seemed to accompany me. So that's interesting, because in Demian he's saying that like God makes us feel lonely and that actually leads us back to who we are. But then in 1Q84 it's saying that the loneliness was them actually running away from who they are. As you could probably see, if you've seen my Bangtan book club, there's like a specific BTS philosophy that they hark back to in a lot of their work. Honestly, I think BTS should write a philosophy book, just like the BTS philosophy, because it's very consistent throughout all their writing, their lyrics, their like storylines and their music videos. Like, it's very, very consistent, but it still develops. So someone should write this book. Like, come on. There's also a moment when Tengo goes to visit his father, and he basically says, I'm tired of living in hatred, resentment. I'm tired of living unable to love anyone. I don't have a single friend, not one. And worst of all, I can't even love myself. Why is that? A person learns how to love himself through the simple acts of loving and being loved by someone else. Now, what does that sound like? I don't need to spell this out for you. It's plain as day, presented on a platter. So this harks back to BTS's Love Yourself series. And also Namjoon's Reflection, where he talks about how he wishes he could love himself. Hey, wait. Oh, look, Love Yourself answer right there. They said they made the Love Yourself series to show that true love begins with being able to love oneself. But also on many occasions they've said that loving yourself isn't easy and it doesn't come naturally to people. They always say that the love and support that they've received from like the fans and their family and friends and stuff is what allows them to keep loving themselves. You are the reason I'm able to love myself because of your support.
This Love Yourself tour, I'm finding how to love myself. I didn't know anything about loving myself. Like, you guys taught me through your eyes, through your love, through your tweets, through your letters, through everything. You guys taught me and inspired me how to love myself. It's never intended, but it feels like I'm using you guys to love myself. So I want to say one thing. Please use me. Please use BTS to love myself. You guys taught me how to love myself.
Just a little aside, I feel like a lot of artists do say this, but maybe I'm biased, but with BTS it's really genuine. Essentially what they're saying is figuring out how to love yourself when you're in an environment where it feels like you're just surrounded by hate and hate is coming from every side is nearly impossible. Like with Whaley and 52, if it feels like you're alone, they want you to know that you're not alone, that they're here for you, and hopefully that will give you the strength to be there for yourself. Here we go again, finding deeper meaning in the love yourself. The phrase love yourself, it seems very like whoa, like why is it so abrupt and out there and like in your face? Saying the statement like love yourself isn't going to help anybody actually love themselves. But I also feel like affirmations and manifesting are like real. Being able to say things like that like out loud, like I love myself, or like I'm the one I should love in this world. Saying things like this is like subconsciously uplifting you. And genuinely, people always like to make fun of them for the Love Yourself campaign, but I'm like, how can you possibly be joking about someone spreading a message that could actually save people's lives? Like that's a fantastic thing. Even if you think it's cringy or you think it's a bit overdone, it really is helping people. I see it as only a beautiful thing. Okay, now I gotta talk about some spoilers because okay, so I said how I love Fukaeri's story and how it's like the magical realism was like weaved into 1Q84. I loved the little people. It was so creepy. Like there's these little people that like crawl out of people's heads and I wanted to know what was happening with the little people. I was so fascinating, like where did they come from, like what did they want. I feel like in the end I didn't receive the answer that I wanted to receive. But it was still really fascinating to me. The journey before destination, the journey was great. So it turns out Mame is the little girl that Tengo befriended in school, and that's how they're connected. And they both kind of had this really intense attachment to each other, and especially with them being very lonely people and living very solitary lives, they keep on harking back to that one moment when they first felt like they weren't alone. I found that I was like way too emotionally attached to Ayamame way too quick, and I don't really know why. Maybe it's because of the stuff that like she went through. I just felt for her. So at the end of book 2 when she's like got the gun in her mouth and she's about to, you know, pop off, I was so scared. I was like, no, like they literally introduced the gun back and I was like, when's she gonna fire that gun? And then he literally makes a reference to Chekhov's gun and I was like, Murakami, why are you so meta? But then she ends up firing the gun and I was like, please don't. And then I turned the page and she didn't. Obviously I didn't want her to do that. It wasn't disappointing, but it's just like I felt like the end of book 2, the climax was like here. The beginning of book 3 was she took the gun out of her mouth and just like walked off, and I'm like, I wish she'd had more contemplation after it. I don't know. Like, this is the definition of a cliffhanger. Why do you have to wait to read what happened with that ending? Nah, fam, nah. Okay, when we found out that Ayamame was murdering men, yes! Murdering men who abused women, yes! It was great. I was like, yes, stab them with the ice pick. This is what I'm here for. Basically, she pretends to be a masseuse, like stabs them in the specific spot, and it just like instantly kills them. And there's no blood because she uses like a special pick. I'm proud of you. So the religious cult, she gets assigned to murder the leader, who's just called the leader. I understand why she did not immediately kill him. With her past, being part of a cult, and like she kind of wanted to hear what he had to say, wanted to see his justification for, you know, all those children. But when he started talking, I was like, bro, he's disgusting. Like, disgusting. No joke, I was on the edge of my seat this whole chapter. They're having a conversation and I was sweating. The power of Murakami. So there was just some things that really disturbed me and unsettled me in a way that I couldn't quite get over. Like, I knew this book was supposed to make me uncomfortable. I came into it knowing that. Okay, so the leader, basically, he has this physical ailment which makes him completely paralyzed with just... And 10-year-old girls come in and perform on him while he's paralyzed in the hopes of getting pregnant with his child. Okay, so we found out about this of these children. We go to kill this guy who's these children, and then you find out that he is not in control of the situation because he's paralyzed and they're coming to him. And there was also the situation with Fukari and Tango. Of course, he's 29 years old and she's 17, and it had to get sexual. Why? The way she's described is very, like, infantile. Like, she's described as being very childlike. And so how can you describe a person physically and sometimes mentally to be childlike and then have them come onto... Again, she's coming onto him. And again, he goes paralyzed like the leader did. And I'm like... Why are we continuing this narrative that, like, minors are forcing adult men to have sex with them? Like, are we supposed to think that it's because of the trauma that they've had in the past to do with the cult and they've been brainwashed to think that this is what they want? It just doesn't clock. It doesn't add up in my brain. I don't want to be reading about this. All the sex scenes were a bit cringe, not gonna lie. But those two in particular were just, like, graphic. It was just weird. Okay. I feel like I've been talking for so long. Okay, the ranking. So I'm gonna rank this on 4 different criteria. Number 1, big brain. For big brain, I would definitely give this like a 7.5 because it was big brain at times. I was thinking about a lot of things and deeping a lot of the philosophy that was in it, and it had some great insights. Number 2, writing style. I'm gonna give that a 9. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking, mate. Murakami's so slow. He's so slow. He describes everything. But it's just like, it sucked me in. I can't tell you why. It was like a good slow burn mini-series. You know, where it's like, you take a story and a film is too short. So they do like a good one and done, 1 season mini-series. An hour each episode. It's like a movie story, but like you go in depth. And that's how I felt with this book. Ugh, yes. Links to BTS. I would probably give it like a 3, maybe a 4. I think there's a lot of philosophical links and a lot of similar themes again, but there's no like direct links. And the last one, my enjoyment of the book. As I said, I was so enthralled and I loved like 90% of this book, but the 10% that I didn't like was just like, it was very uncomfortable for me. So I don't even know what to put this. I'm just gonna put question mark. Okay, so that was my review of 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this. Also, you can watch the rest of the videos that I made in the Bangtan Book Club series. We've got 1 more book to read. Next time we'll be reading Kafka on the Shore. I don't know why I left both the Murakamis to the end, but I guess I'm just gonna go into a Murakami dive. But it'd be good to compare Kafka on the Shore to 1Q84. We've really gone on a journey. Like, when I think about it, each book I've read for this series has been like in a different country almost. Went to like France and like Germany. Oh, by the way, I said in my Jung's Map of the Soul video that Jung is a German psychologist, and he's Swiss. And I don't know why I said he's a German psychologist. He's Swiss. That was my mistake. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Catch y'all on the flip-flop later.